Okay, welcome back to a review series I haven't done in about a month. Well, because I was going to review this, but I completely forgot about this one. But, yeah, this is Nick Lenz's Doctor Who reviews. Yep, this is episode 2. And what am I discussing? Why is there a Dalek story? But it's one of the good ones. This is from the era of Tom Baker, and this is his 4th story he ever worked on. Yes, the 4th. You're probably thinking, what was the first 3? Robot, Ark in Space, and the Centaurian Experiment. Which, by the way, that one, Centaurian Experiment, was only 2 episodes. Yeah, this is quite long. This is like, I think about 8 episodes. This is called The Genesis of the Daleks. Yep. The story that's the debut of Deberos. Yep. And it's also the first that the Doctor's got back to Skaro. Let's see. At this point, I think the last time I officially went to Skaro was back in the original story. Which, that's interesting. Yes. Oh, in case you're curious, though, when it comes to Skaro, after this, Skaro only technically appeared 2 more times in the classic Who era. It appeared in the follow-up. It appeared in one more in the second Dalek story. It appeared in Tom Baker, which I'll discuss in the next video. And it also appeared in the Professor McCoy story, Revelation of Daleks, which is a really good story. This one is basically Tom Baker. Yep, first talk about Tom Baker. Now, Tom Baker himself, the longest tenured doctor. He was a doctor for 7 years. From 1979 to, actually it was 1974 to 1981. Yep. First official appearance was back in Planet of the Spiders in a cameo, but his first story was Robot, which was a story that was left over from the previous era of Doctor Who. Yep. Now, this story here, written by Terry Nation, the guy who created the Daleks. Yep. Excuse me. Now, this one is interesting, though. There's a couple really interesting factoids with this one. Actually, several. Number 1, it's the first Doctor Who story without the TARDIS making an appearance. Yeah, it is the first one ever to do this. Now, you're probably thinking, really? Yeah, the whole story. Now, yes, they've had several episodes where TARDIS stuff technically doesn't appear on screen, but usually appears at the start of a story and at the end of a story. This is the first one where TARDIS does not appear. It's mentioned several times. We also the first of 2 stories that feature a device known as a time ring, which the Doctor needs to get back to his TARDIS. Now, who is his companion at this period of time? Why, it's Sarah Jane Smith, played by the late Elizabeth Sladen, and Harry Sullivan, which the joke in the previous stories is, Harry Sullivan is an imbecile, which I thought was so hilarious. Yeah, but that's Tom Baker for you. Let's see. The guy who played him, I think he since passed away. Yeah. He passed away, I think it was like 1982, so like Eden Martyr. Yeah, actually passed away in 1986. Yep. Yeah. They actually mentioned his death on screen in the episode of Sarah Jane Adventures. Now, the thing with Harry Sullivan is he worked for UNIT. Yep, he worked for UNIT as a medical doctor. He made his first appearance in Robots, and then he left at, well, the start of the next season. Now, this is also the first one to have a continuous story with it. Yes, this is the first season of 2 to have a continuous story with it. They actually did this with Tom Baker's 4th season, The Key to Time. That was technically the second time they ever did a continuous story arc. This one just a continuous story. Starting from Robots, ended with Terror of the Zygons. This is the 4th story in that loop. And basically, the thing starts off with a doctor on this rocky thing, and he meets up with a Time Lord. And he probably thinking, wait, I don't want anything to do with you. I've already did everything for you, so leave me alone. And he's like, we have a mission for you. He's like, Whatever it is, I won't do it. And then he says, Daleks. And doctors are like, Daleks, what do you want me to do? We want you to either prevent their creation or slow down the evolution. That's your mission. Here's a time ring to help you get back to your own time period, to help you get back to the TARDIS. When you finish here. And then, of course, then he meets up with Harry. And, by the way, the planet he ends up on is Skaro. Yep. Oh, yeah, and it's the middle of a war. The Thals and the Khalids. The Thals are... How should I put this? Well, they're a bit more nicer people. The Khalids are the people who actually, well, developed the Daleks. Well, this is the story they introduced this guy. Davros, played by Michael Wisher. Yep. I'm trying to be nice with them here. I know technically this is his first appearance here. Yeah, it's Michael Wisher. And he plays him just for this story. And when they bring the character back for another Dalek story, here's something interesting though. They don't bring back the actor, the original actor to play him. I'll explain that more when I get to the sequel story of this one. Now, the way that they explain this world is that it's a mixture of like World War One and World War Two. A little bit of bows and arrows, and there's also gas masks, trench warfare. It seems like this world is heavily inspired by World War One. And there are two cities here. Two dome cities. Now, here's a fun little question. Is there any other people in this play besides the Thals and the Khalids? Yeah, so the Doctor himself is captured, him and Harry. Sarah is separated from them, though she later sees Davros before the Doctor does. That's interesting, though. Sarah is one of those companions who sees a particular popular recurring villain before the Doctor does. And I'll get to something quite interesting though when it comes to Davros. Where's this one? Yes, so Doctor's interrogated very nicely, of course, and then he's introduced to Davros, who comes out with one of the Daleks. Yep, with one of the Daleks. And it appears to look like it was about to kill the Doctor, but lucky enough, one of the scientists who is agreeable with the Doctor stops it before he kills. Is like, hey, let me tell you, for like, okay, but you'll be punished for it because they're interviewing this experiment. Yep, and they chat for a bit, and of course he had to get back his stuff. Yeah, and also he brings out his sonic screwdriver, I think, out of his pocket. Yes, he doesn't. I think he used it maybe a couple times here. What is Sarah J. Smith to? Well, she ends up with a third species, the Mutos. Yes, the Mutos. Basically, think of them as the lepers. They're people who are disfigured, and she's referred to as a norm. People who are not mutated. So she's brought to the Thals, where they use slave labor to build a missile without any safety precautions. Oh, by the way, we have these slaves handling nuclear warheads without the proper equipment. They're carrying these things with their bare hands. Oh boy, if the U.S. basically would see here, if they see the Thals are doing, they're probably like, hey, stop what you're doing right now. And they're probably like, okay, I want you to treat the people with radiation right now, and then I want you to give the proper equipment to these people. Yeah, they don't freaking care. Well, some of them anyways. Sarah does escape somewhat, but though she does go briefly back to the Thals. And as in the case of the Doctor, well, they do get down to the bunker, which is interesting to say the least. Now, they're basically like several floors down, and then eventually, like, they see like the room where apparently the embryos of the Daleks are made. And of course, this becomes a plot point later on when the Doctor has to go back here. So, one of the Fall, one of the Khaleds, who actually is a science. He's basically someone who's in the military, but he is simply on the doctor's side because he doesn't like what Devros is doing. He thinks that, well, he has the opinion that the Daleks should not be motionless. They should have emotion in what they do. So, they sort of form a revolt against Devros, and Devros himself briefly captures the Doctor and interrogates him when, of course, Sarah Jane Smith gets to the action bunker itself, and he basically spills the beans on all his previous adventures, including mentioning the Dalek invasion of Earth. Yep. That gets brought up several times here. They brought up a whole bunch of stories here. Let's see. Let's see. Now, yes, I have done technically a review of the actual novel that adapted the story. Now, pretty much we actually have, yes, the Daleks do in fact become their normal selves, and then there's massive killings in both cities that are eventually destroyed. The Khaled city is destroyed by the Fowls, thanks to their mishap because Devros betrayed them, and the Fowls, with except a large chunk of them per se, are killed by the Daleks, who go on a massacre spree. The Doctor goes over to try to get him stopped with launch of warhead, but the thing is destroyed. But some of them actually survive, and then of course they capture Devros' assistant Nider, I think that's his name. At one point you think he was turning against Devros, turns out it was a plot, it was a trap. So, okay, you give me two things: give me the time ring and give me the recording device that I spell my secrets with. Okay, that's in Devros' office. And they go back to his office, nice looking office, and he's like, oh yeah, I don't know the combination. And the Doctor points out a plot hole with him. What does he point out though? Well, Devros is in a chair. He can't reach that high, so it had to be Nadir to open up the door. So he unlocks the door, gives the Doctor the thing. Of course he gets away, no problem. Oh, he destroys the recording with a Dalek gun. Yes, the Doctor used a Dalek gun. And of course hits up explosives with the incubator chamber. And he's like, you have this little image of him would I do it? Would I actually try to kill Daleks? And he sets the thing down, and then later on they're chased by the Daleks in the hallway, and the Dalek actually destroys the incubation chamber. Oddly enough. Oh yeah, and all of the Khaleds are killed. And supposedly Devros is killed too. He is shot. And exterminate, and he gets killed. Yeah, this is a fantastic story. Yep. You at least gotta watch the thing to basically understand it. This aired over the course of about a little over a month. I'm thinking this was about 7 episodes, I think this was. No, this was 6. 6 episodes. Wow, really? Yeah, 6. And now, outside factors of this story led to something in New Who. The Time War. Yep. And also, Sarah Jane Smith does see Devros again after this. I'll get to his revival in the follow-up story of this one. But when she hears his voice, wait, that's not possible. He's dead. And then Devros is I remember you. You were there when I unveiled the Daleks the first time. Though he's played by a different actor at that point. Yeah. Though I think it was Julian Balach who actually played him in that story. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the first time I saw him. In the two-parter Stolen Earth Journey's End. Yep. But this, really good. It's a pure classic Doctor Who story. I give this one a 10 out of 10. Fantastic story. Yeah. And this one basically is regarded, this particular story is one of the greatest Doctor Who stories of all time, and one of the best Dalek stories of all time. Now, how this story came about is quite interesting. Terry Nation, who wrote the revival Dalek stories in the Third Doctor era, had a very similar premise when it comes to Daleks. And then he was just, why not go back to the beginning? And I guess he's like, okay. So he came up with Deveros. Yep. He came up with Deveros, the creator of the Daleks. Yeah, I'm looking at his picture now. His appearance hasn't really changed all that much. His skin color may have changed, but his design really hasn't changed very much at all. Yes. Now, how did he get the way he did? I think it's explained in the actual book itself. It was due to exposure to radiation in terms of this. Yeah, and even though he's mad, he's a genius. And then of course he has the thing of like, when you have virus, like I would do it, I would, something like that. He's very quotable as a Doctor Who villain. Yeah, and he appears for the rest of the time that the Daleks appeared in Classic Who. In New Who, he only appeared in the two-parter, let's see, he appeared in Stolen Earth Journey's End, and then after that, he didn't appear again for a long time. Yeah, he didn't appear again until the start of the 12th Doctor's final year of his run. Yes, he appeared in The Magician's Apprentice and Witch's Familiar. Yeah, it's strange though. Deveros only appears for 4 episodes physically in New Who, and yet for Classic Who, he appears in 5 stories. Yes, 5 stories. Yes, I discussed his last official one, but yeah, Deveros is a great character. And my guess is the reason why they bring him back in the following story because of how humongously popular he is. Dog gets that in the following one. Yep. So yeah, that's episode 1. I'm going to do one more, and then I'll do our last crusade or a new world. What's the next we'll talk about? The follow-up to this one. Okay, to the next video. Bye.